العلم أشراف مطلب وطالبه لله أكرام من يمشي على قدم. العلم نور مبين يستضيء به أهل السعادات والجهال في الظلم.
طيب، من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا، من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد، يقول الشيخ عبد الرحمن الناصر السعدي رحمة الله عليه رحمة واسعة: باب السلم. يصح السلم في كل ما ينطبط بالصفة إذا انطبطه بجميع صفاته التي يختلف بها ثمن، وذكر أجله وأعطاه الثمن قبل التفرق. عن ابن عباس رضي الله عنه قال: قدم النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وهم يسلفون في الثمار السنة والسنتين، فقال: من أسلف في تمر فليسلف في كيل معلوم ووزن معلوم إلى أجل معلوم. وقال صلى الله عليه وسلم: من أخذ أموال الناس يريد أداها الله عنه، ومن أخذها يريد إتلافها أتلفه الله تعالى. رواه البخاري. This next bab in Kitab al-Biyu' for Manhaj Saalikeen is Bab al-Salam. Bab al-Salam is that it's a type of bay'. It's a specific type of bay', whereby the bay' that we were accustomed with, or al-bay' in general, is of four types. Buying and selling is of four types. بيع حال بحال. بيع حال بحال. A transaction where you give and you take. مثلا, you walk into the shop, you pick up a bottle of water and you give the cash in hand. You give the cash to the shopkeeper. That is بيع حال بحال. You've literally transferred everything over. The next, and that is permissible, طبعا. That is permissible. The next type is بيع حال أو بيع مؤجل بمؤجل. بيع مؤجل بمؤجل. بيع مؤجل بمؤجل. And it means to delay the giving of the item and the giving of the money. You're delaying the giving of the money and the giving of the item. So you want to buy something from someone and you say to him, I'm going to buy this phone from you in 6 months time, and I'm however many months, 3 months, and you give me the phone in 3 months. Ajal bi ajal, muajjal bi muajjal. So you're technically buying dain for dain. That is muharram. It is not permissible. That is muharram, and it is not permissible. The third type is bay'u halin bi muajjalin. But you're not going to get it now. In October, مثلا, is obviously going to be able to get hold of it during that time. So you say to them, you say, I'm going to that phone with this model and that type and this color, this size, gigabytes and so on. I want you to give it to me. I want to buy it from you in October. He says, طيب, ما في مشكلة. Buy it. You give him the cash and you wait for him to wait for him to bring you the item in 6 months time, in October. You're pre-ordering now. You're pre-ordering, but we'll see the conditions. But you're pre-ordering and you're paying the cash. You're paying the full amount now, and you're expecting the item to come into your possession within 3, 4, 5, 6 months, whatever date you set between yourselves. Is that understood? That's what bay' salam is. So the Shaykh says, rahimahullah, or if we look at the definition of bay', it is عقد على موصوف في الذمة. It is the sale of an item obligatory upon one's conscience بثمن مقبوض بِثَمَنٍ مَقْبُوضٍ, for an amount that you're paying. Your amount that you're given, بِثَمَنٍ مَقْبُوضٍ فِي مَجْلِسِ الْعَقْدِ. You're given that in the majlis or in the place of this transaction, whether it's a shop, whether it's in a house, wherever it may be, wherever it may be. So that is what salam is. The Shaykh says rahimahullah, and the evidence for it is the hadith of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, hadith ibn Abbas, where the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man aslafa fi tamrin فليسلف في كيل معلوم ووزن معلوم إلى أجل معلوم." ووزن أي أو, that means أو. ووزن أي أو وزن معلوم. So the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he came to Medina, he found that they would pre-order dates. They would pre-order dates and they would pay in advance. As the hadith says, قَدِمَ النَّبِيُّ صلى الله عليه وسلم وهم يسلفون في الثمار السنة والسنتين. They would make, or they would pay in advance a year or two ahead. A year or two ahead. So when the Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم saw this, if it was haram, if it was not permissible, he would have what? He would have prohibited it. And there's a qa'idah that we shall see in Surah Al-Fiqh inshallah. التأخير عن وقت الحاجة لا يجوز. What was the قاعدة? تأخير البيان عن وقت الحاجة لا يجوز. تأخير البيان عن وقت الحاجة. Not clarifying the ruling at the time of need is not permissible. تأخير البيان عن وقت الحاجة لا يجوز. So if this was not permissible, and this qa'idah, by the way, can be used in many different abwab or chapters. طيب. So the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, after seeing what they were doing, if it was muharram, he would have told them, "La, stop doing what you're doing," and he would have given them a different solution sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Like he said to them, "Man aslafa," he gave them, he restricted the type of sale that they were doing. He said, "Man aslafa fi tamrin," whoever is going to pay in advance for dates, فَلْيُسْلِفْ فِي كَيْلٍ مَعْلُومٍ, let him do so with a known measure, a known amount. 10 kilos, 20 kilos, whatever it may be. أو وزن معلوم, or whether it's in weight, or whether it's in measured by volume. It has to be known. So you can't just say to someone, in 6 months' time, give me quite a lot of dates. Give me a lot of dates. And give me a bag full of dates. Because that goes against the hadith of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Also, إلى أجل معلوم, to a fixed term, to a fixed time. So these are the conditions that we shall see. Like I'm mentioning the hadith, or I'm explaining the hadith, so that you understand what it means. So the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said it has to be a known amount, and it has to be a known up until a known date, a fixed date. طيب. يقول الشيخ سعدي رحمه الله: يصح السلم في كل ما ينضبط بالصفة. It is permissible to pay in advance, the debate of salam, in everything that can be fully specified. إذا طبده بجميع صفاته, if all of the traits التي يختلف بها الثمن, if all of the traits of this item, all of the descriptions of this item are clearly specified, then it is permissible, the Shaykh says. لكن, where it says التي, put that in brackets, التي يختلف بها الثمن. التي يختلف بها الثمن. Those descriptions in which the price differs over. The price, it differs over. So for example, مثلا, if I wanted to buy a mobile phone, there's a difference between me saying I want a phone that's got 32 gigabytes and I want a phone that has got 64 gigabytes. There's a clear difference. Which one's going to be more expensive? 64 gig. طيب. Also, sometimes what happens is even the color can be a reason for the price going up. The color can be a reason for the price going up. Like in مثلا, if you're buying a car and it's a new car, Lakin the fan is slightly underneath the radio, and in another car the fan is slightly on the side of the radio. Does that make a difference in terms of the price? More often than not, it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference to the price of, it doesn't make a difference on the price of that item. So all of the descriptions that make a difference, that can cause the price to go up or the price to go down, they need to be specified at the time of Bay' al-Salam. The second is وَذِكْرُ أَجَلِهِ, and a fixed term must be mentioned. A fixed term must be mentioned. So you can't say, for example, I'm going to buy it from you when I get, and whenever you're able to give it to me, or you can't say whenever I get back from my safar, from my journey, or whenever I graduate. You can't say things like that, or whenever I get married, or whenever this person gets married. You can't say that. Why? Because it's not a fixed time. It is not fixed time. And by fixed time, مثلا on the 1st of Ramadan, on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, or at the beginning of the month, or at the end of the month, something which can be specified. Something which can be specified. How many conditions have we, as the Sheikh mentioned so far? 2. What are they? ضبط الصفة, that we mention all of the traits that make a difference on the price, and the ajal, and the time, the fixed time. طيب. وأعطاه الثمن قبل تفرق. The third is that he must give him the amount, the full amount, قبل تفرق, before they depart. Before they depart ways, he must pay the full amount. He can't pay half, can't pay 50% or 60% or 80%. He needs to pay the full amount. Needs to pay the full amount. طيب. So these 3 conditions are the main conditions for Bay' al-Salam. That's why the Shaykh rahimahullah, he mentioned these 7, or these 3. The fuqaha mention about up to 7 or so. They mention about 7. Lakin, when we're talking about these conditions, it is not just these 3 conditions. What do we have to include as well? Huh? What do we have to include as well? Huh? The previous conditions, na'am. The previous conditions that were, how many? 4 or 5. طيب. So we have to include those conditions that we also studied. طيب. So that is Bay' al-Salam. And the evidence the Shaykh says, or the evidence that the Shaykh mentions is من أسلف في تمر فليسلف في كيل معلوم. We already talked about the hadith. طيب. What should a person do if the time, for example, if the fixed period ends? مثلا, he said 6 months time. On the 1st of October, I want you to give me this item. The 1st of October comes, this person's already got his money. On the 1st of October, he says, I don't have the item that I was meant to give you. I don't have the dates. The date was the 1st of Ramadan. You give me 10 or 20 kilos of dates on the 1st of Ramadan. Lakin he doesn't have those dates. What happens? The person's got a choice. He can either take the money back, or he can be patient and wait until the next mawsim, or the next season. He can wait and he is patient, or he can take the money back. طيب. Also, the fuqaha in Bab al-Salam, they mention Arkan al-Salam. Arkan al-Salam. From what you've studied in the past with regards to pillars, who can figure out what the Arkan are? If you know, put your hand up. From what you've studied, and you obviously know what Arkan are. From what you've studied from Salah and so on, Bay' al-Salam, what can we say are the pillars? Al-Islam and Aql, na'am, okay, but leave those, these are conditions. Huh? What did I say? I said pillars. صح صح. أركان. لا تمييز, leave that for all of the other conditions of شروط. شروط البيع. No غرض. لا. That's a condition. Look at the salah. Look at the salah. Work it out. Huh? صح? Without the account? Okay. Now we're coming closer. Without the account of collapse. طيب. So بيع السلم, without having these arkan, it collapses. It's not there. لا, how can be a fixed time? We just said they're there from the conditions. Huh? لا, mutual consent was from the conditions. بالغ عاقل رشيد, لا, it's from the conditions. Huh? لا, the weight of the item would be إذا طبده بجميع صفاته. متبايعان, excellent. Okay, متبايعان. So the two people doing the عقد, and what else? شوف, that within the bay'a itself, not before the bay'a. These conditions take place within the bay'a. The muta'aqidan. Excellent. The thing being exchanged, and see, ta'awun al-birri wa taqwa. The things being exchanged is 1 and 2, the muta'aqidan. The muta'aqidan. Write it down, inshallah. Arkanu salam. Al-Muslim. Al-Muslim, and that's not the opposite to the kafir. La. Al-Muslim is the one that is given the mal, the one that is buying the item, the one that is paying the money. Al-Muslim. Secondly, Al-Muslim, Al-Muslam ilayhi, bifath al-lam. Al-Muslam ilayhi, he's the one that takes the mal. He's the one that is due to give. He's the one that is due to give. He's the seller, the one that is due to give the commodity within 6 months. And al-Muslim fihi, and the thaman, the items that are being bought and the money that is being given. ثلاثة أركان. طيب. Then the Shaykh says, rahimahullah, وقال جل وعلا, وقال صلى الله عليه وسلم, or before that, now that you know the conditions of bay' and you know the more specific conditions of salam, what's the ruling, or what is the ruling on drop shipping? Put your hand up if you know. Good question. الحكم على شيء فرع عن تصوره. Drop shipping. Who knows what who can explain what drop shipping is? Huh?
It's when you don't actually see the physical product.
You don't see the physical product. You as who? As the buyer.
So you buy it from a third party and sell it.
You buy it from a third party and you sell it to the third party as well. Okay, similar. Now. Before the hukum, before we get to the hukum of anything, let's try picturing it. Let's understand Surah al-Mas'ala. Umar. You're selling an item as the seller, but you're not in possession of the item. You're buying it from someone and you're selling it to someone else. But you never actually possess the item. مثلا, Amazon. I buy or there's a third person that wants to buy an item from me. Person says, I want to buy مثلا give me an item, an iPhone. طيب. Person wants to buy an iPhone. I go to Amazon, buy it from them. Without it coming to me, it goes direct to the person that I'm selling it to. صح? طيب. So now that you've pictured it, or kind of pictured it, what is the ruling on that transaction? Who said haram? Umar says it's haram. طيب. So Umar says it's haram. Who's going to debate with him on the other side?
Are we basing it just on? So if the item...
If I ask you a question, never ask me a question back. Go on, go on.
If the item is specified, so it's an iPhone...
لا لا لا. You're going into a محاضرة. I know. لا لا. Hold on. Umar says it is what, haram? طيب, who's going to oppose him? Who's going to agree with him?
There's someone giving money, there's someone taking money.
Hmm?
There's someone that's giving money for the item, and there's someone taking money.
So do you agree with him or disagree with him? You disagree with him. So you're saying it's halal. طيب, so we have Abdullah that says it is halal, and we have Umar that says it is haram. And the sisters, I suppose you all agree with Abdullah, huh? Jumhur al-Akhawat, they agree with Abdullah. And there's a qawl that is shad, then you said it's not permissible. طيب, brothers? Abdullah, don't ask me a question. You are asking me a question, you know. You think it's allowed? طيب, you went for qawl al-shad as well. Huh? طيب, why is it, Umar, why did you say it's haram? Okay, so Umar is saying the reason why I'm saying it's haram, the reason why Umar is saying it's haram is because from the conditions of bay' is al-mulk or al-milk. That, huh?
There's 4 other types as well.
Of what?
You can sell on behalf of someone.
There's 4 other types of what? Dropshipping. طيب, نعم وكيل, representative and so on. طيب. لا, شوف, what you're doing now is you're rectifying the bay'. You're finding solutions for it. But in reality, you're not the representative. You're not the wakil. And Amazon haven't contacted you and said, yeah, Abdullah. They haven't said to you, you're now our wakil, صح? What you've mentioned is one of the ways of solutions. But like Amazon won't contact you and say you're a wakil. So Umar is saying it is not permissible. So you're on the other side. Umar is saying to you, it's not permissible because it's an item that you do not own. But you disagree with him, so what have you got to counterattack his argument? And in a way, he's kind of right, because we did study the conditions, is that you must. Like, where's all the jumhur of the sisters that were... Yeah? Okay, so you're buying it from Amazon. But is that actually how it takes place? Are you actually buying it from Amazon first, or are you selling it to this individual first?
No, but you pay the difference.
When will you pay the difference? So Umar is still in the right here by saying that you'll pay it afterwards.
But it's the angle of, like, for example, say hypothetically it's fine.
Huh?
You've got a product and if, like, someone else now gets it, you won't know what the default, like, you won't know if there's a defect in it. So
So you're saying it's muharram yani because of that. But based on what we studied on salam, طبعا that can't come under salam. That can't come under salam. Lakin, it is not because of these conditions that we mentioned that it can't come under salam. Because, for example, what did the Shaykh say, rahmatullahi alayhi, you have to be able to describe it, صح? An item you're buying from Amazon, you are able to describe it 100%. Also, dhikr ajlihi, you're able to bring up a fixed term, because they've got now Prime, so you can literally get it the next day, so you know it's a fixed day. وَأَعْطَاهُ الثَّمَنِ, and you're given the amount of money you're paying up front anyway. So these conditions that we've mentioned now, as per se, that doesn't contradict salam. Lakin it contradicts, as Umar said, Jazahullah khair, one of the conditions that we studied last week, or in the past, which was what? Al-milk. You actually have to own the item first. With dropshipping, that is the problem. It is not the problem of it being not being able to describe the item or not having a fixed date, the fixed term. Lakin the problem with dropshipping is the fact that you don't actually own the item that you're selling. That you don't own the item that you're selling. That's why it's muharram. Anything can happen after that. You may not be able to get hold of the item. As the sister said, the item may get to the third party that you're selling it to and it may have a defect. You don't know of the item, of that defect. طيب. So that's that. There's ways of rectifying it, lakin, which is ways of يعني المخرج الشرعي. مخرج الشرعي meaning a solution, a shari'i solution. A shari'i solution is, the scholars say, that you're a wakil, where you mentioned Muhammad, where you become a wakil, so you're a representative. So they're paying you for you being the representative. Later on, if anything happens, you're still the middleman, and you're allowed to be the middleman in that case because you're a representative. And that's one of the things that we mentioned earlier on, that the sister mentioned as well, the 4 types. طيب. Another solution to dropshipping is that you say to this person, you mention the item to them, and then you go and buy the item, and the item comes into your possession. So you've got the item, and then you sell it on to him. Is that understood? So that is similar to what they call nowadays some certain transactions of mortgages, where the bank doesn't actually buy the house. The bank doesn't actually buy the house. It is something which is iftiradi. The bank never actually buys the house from the agency that is selling the house. طيب.
I just wanted to add to another example of that as well, probably just the principle masala, is that car parts as well. You know, you take your car to the garage and there's something wrong with it, the garage will call you like, this is wrong with it, we need the part. Instead of them ordering the part, they always tell you to order, so they become your agent. And they order the part.
Oh,
you can order the part yourself and then fix it for you.
It's not, but when you're going to the garage, you're giving them permission to go buy on your item. So they become your agent, يعني your wakil. They become your agent, your wakil. You don't have to go to the garage. طيب. The last hadith the Shaykh says rahimahullah is وَقَالَ مَنْ أَخَذَ أَمْوَالَ النَّاسِ يُرِيدُ أَدَاهَا. طيب. Why did the Shaykh end this bab with this hadith? Who can tell? Who can tell me? From the sisters. Why did the Shaykh rahimahullah end the hadith? Obviously we know that the Shaykh always brings the hadiths at the end of the bab. Like in this hadith is not a dalil for the mas'ala that we're studying now. So why would he bring this hadith? What is the connection between the hadith and the bab?
A person might take money from the people saying that they'll give them the item, but then they might do it for the wrong reasons.
نعم, they may take أحسنتي جزاك الله خير. Abdullah? نعم, there's also a level of trust. صحيح. Always try to think why the Shaykh mentions this hadith, or in general, whatever book you're reading in the books of fiqh, or wherever it may be, try to establish the connection between the hadiths or the text and the bab. And that's why, for example, Kitab al-Tawheed, مثلا, the Shaykh says, Babu qawli Allahi ta'ala kada wa kada wa kada. Try establishing the relationship between the verse or the hadith and the chapter title. طيب. نعم, as the students mentioned, is that there's a level of trust, and also salam requires you taking the money first. Now, if a person has the intention of genuinely returning these items back, or bringing these items to the person, or if he borrowed money from a person, if he intends to bring it back, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will addaha Allahu anhu, even if he's not able to pay. So the scholars say, مثلا, for example,